Oh, hello, friends. It is I, Quentin, obviously. Sorry, I had to move the candle. Don't set the microphone wire on fire. We're back, baby. It is just going to be me. Let's talk about it. So, there are a few things that are changing to the podcast moving forward. Now, going to be solely me for the remainder of the podcast. I think that there will be instances where people like M and other people that are related to recovery or healing or just self-discovery, spirituality, a lot of the things that I'm interested in, what this channel is about, they might be coming on in the future just for random one-off episodes. So we're still focusing on recovery and healing and self-discovery and personal development and behavior. So nothing is really changing about that at all. The episodes will still only be audio, and hopefully they'll be a lot shorter. I'm hoping like 10 to 15 minute episodes. I'm hoping to launch them on a bi-weekly basis, so every other week, so that I can have more time to focus on some new projects that I'm really, really excited about, but also mainly the codependency conversation series, because it has just been so beneficial for me to do that work, because it's also helping me lean into my recovery more. And it's a fun way to do it. So I'm really enjoying it. And it seems like it's beneficial to people. And that makes me happy. I am glad that it is resonating and helping people understand what codependency is all about, because it's kind of misunderstood sometimes. I think the only other note that I had there is that there may be times that I am just reading what I've written. I think there will be times where we just have a conversation about a topic, but there will be instances, I think, that I have written out something that's just on my heart, and I hope to just be able to read it here if it is not too personal. And I'm viewing it kind of like how people share in recovery meetings about their experience, strength, and hope. That's kind of the major changes that are happening on the podcast. And, I'm cool with it. I am a lot more open and flexible now that I'm in recovery and know that I can't fucking control everything. So today, I want to talk about self-advocation in relationships. I have some things written that I will probably just read because it is a good explanation of why it is tough for me. I have just had a lot of recent realizations and epiphanies about how I struggle with advocating for myself in real time. It is really, really tough for me to stand up for myself, for me to say that somebody has behaved or said something that has caused me pain. And like, it's an accumulation of all of these parts of me that makes it such a big struggle in my life. This has to do a lot with information I'm just learning about being a highly sensitive person. Let's just talk about it. So I wrote that codependency creates a fear of conflict and rejection. I'd even include abandonment, as in a withdrawal of love. It can trigger anxiety of someone being reactive to your emotion to advocate for yourself. You can worry that doing this will lead to loss of the relationship. Codependency also leads to not having the skill set to recognize your own needs and feelings in the moment, let alone expressing them. When you've been so used to focusing on others, advocating for yourself can feel unnatural and uncomfortable. As a highly sensitive person, I can get easily overwhelmed by emotional intensity, my own emotions or others. This can result in me not being able to think clearly or be able to nail down what emotions are mine and which are the other person's that I'm just taking on for myself, which adds another layer of complexity. HSPs are also deeply empathetic, so we don't like to cause others harm or distress. So even the idea of standing up for myself can just get intertwined with my fear of hurting others, which makes it a lot harder to stand up for myself. So being an INFJ, I value harmony and peace, but also justice and integrity. So there's an internal conflict that's very hard to balance, along with the other parts of myself coming into play. We're also known for our tendency to overthink and idealize situations, so I can get stuck in a loop of trying to think of the perfect way to respond and daydreaming about how it should go, which can cause me to freeze or hesitate when it's time to act. I also have always struggled with chronic disassociation. I've kind of talked about this in videos before. I'm only about a year and a half from trying to repair, and so in moments where I need to stand up for myself, I can just be in a state of disassociation. So I have no clarity, grounding, or have the emotional awareness needed to respond effectively. I can feel numb, detached, or as if I'm watching the situation from a distance. I also disassociate as a trauma response, so if I'm even slightly threatened, I can get kicked out of my body almost to go into survival state, and I'm unable to be assertive. So all of these combined and factor into what my 4F type is, which are the trauma responses of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And normally I go into freeze mode in these moments. My nervous system can get easily overwhelmed by the fear of conflict, emotional intensity, and the struggle to reconcile my desire for peace with the need for self-advocacy. So by the time I've processed everything, the opportunity to assert myself has already passed. To combat these issues and try to change my behavior, I've tried to do the following. I practice grounding techniques like focusing on my breath and having a grounding crystal in my pocket during these times where I know that I'm going to be in a place where I might have to self-advocate. I've tried to get better at knowing when I got kicked out of my body and going to the bathroom or excusing myself and taking some deep breaths, focusing on the sensation of the breath for a few minutes before returning to the situation. I've had to practice or rehearse asserting myself in the mirror before. Like if I know that I'm going into a conversation that I'm going to be discussing or hearing some tough things, I normally will try and script something out and practice it before entering the conversation. I try not to get too detailed with it, but I normally will have some kind of like checklist of the main things that I want to make sure I discuss. If they're tough things, I try to write them in the most kind and loving way, but also I have to be in a very kind and loving space. So I try to be conscious of when that time is and actually do that work then instead of like when I'm in my anger or frustration. Showing myself compassion for these challenges has changed the game because I'm removing pressure from myself to quote unquote do it perfectly. And I allow myself to be human and make mistakes. There's been times where I'm also like, if this person can't handle me making any kind of a mistake in our relationship, then they probably aren't meant to be in my life anyways. This has helped me reduce the fear of quote unquote losing people, and I've reframed it as I deserve people that understand me and don't project perfection onto me and give me space to make human mistakes. I feel like just being upfront about being a highly sensitive person is beneficial. I kind of wish I had like a highly sensitive person business card to be like, look, this is what it means to be an HSP, and I'm not good at self-advocating for myself. So there might be times where you say something and I don't realize until weeks later that it hurt me. And then we're going to have a conversation about it. So I think that people believe I'm choosing these things to like nitpick about them and I'm pointing out flaws in their character, which I'm not. It's just I didn't realize until now that I needed to stand up for myself because what you said or did made me feel uncomfortable. And I'm telling you this information not to reprimand anybody, but I'm telling you this information so that you can hear me. I think a lot of the times all people want is like an acknowledgement of what they said, taking accountability for their part of the suffering, and then apologize for it sincerely. There are two parts of an apology: saying I'm sorry for specifically what you have done, because that tells the other person that you have acknowledged and you hear them and you hear what their perspective is of the situation, and you can accept that because they're allowed to have that perspective. Listen to people when they're speaking to you about how they behave and what their struggles are. Like, you have to hear them and don't take things personally. The reason people get defensive in these moments, I feel like, is because they are not willing to take accountability for their behaviors hurting somebody. Because most people don't want to hurt others, and people believe that that is their integrity or that is who they are. And I don't believe that. I know that we are all innately good souls. Like, I feel like that's what this whole self-discovery journey is is untying the knots of like the personality of the body that we have been given in this life and being able to come back to your truest self. It's scary. It's scary to do that because your personality is like what identifies you. And some people, when they don't have that, they lose grounding and they feel like they're going to float off into fucking space. The last one I put is building confidence in this area has meant that I had to start small and celebrate big. So in situations where it's going to be less emotionally charged or dramatic, I'll start by trying to assert myself. And if that just gets heard and acknowledged by those around me, then I count that as a huge success and celebrate with myself and my inner child and my inner teen to make sure that we all see how great that felt and know that moving forward, we can have less fear about it. It's good to keep the balance of, yes, there will be instances where it will not go great, but I think that that's just how life is, right? Like you're going to have to have the bad to feel the good. So yes, that is what I got on self-advocacy. Hopefully every week we will be talking about whatever I am kind of going through that week. I'm sure there will be ups, there will be positive things to talk about, there will be tough things to talk about, but I'm going to keep it relevant to what is going on in my life, which I think will be fun. We'll be kind of learning together in this. So thank you guys again for coming and hanging out with me on the podcast. I will see you guys in 2 weeks and be on the lookout. We got more codependency conversation videos coming down the line, which I'm very, very excited about. So thank you guys so much. And until I see you, well, hear you guys? What? I don't know. Until next time, I hope you guys have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day. And until then, be well, friends.